Good evening and welcome to the September meeting of the Teaching and Learning Committee. Can hardly believe that the summer went by so fast. I'm sure you agree to that. So welcome to our meeting, and we need to find out if it was posted.
Yes.
Okay, great. And we need to have an opportunity for any citizens in the audience that would like to address the board. Anyone? Okay, thank you. We've got a nice audience tonight, but okay, the first thing we need is approval of the minutes from our last meeting. Could I have a motion? Okay. Okay, moved and seconded to approve the minutes as presented. And all those in favor, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 5-0. Jody, I just made a note. That was so great that South High School gave us a little synopsis of their Italy, Greece, and Spain trip. And I think, when they go abroad, that'd be wonderful for us to hear all the things they're doing. And I think we're approving something tonight that would be nice to have some feedback. That was really great, so.
Right, I'll make a note of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Okay. We have no bright lights tonight. We have no presentation items. We have 2 action items. And the first action item is approval of academic and career planning, education for employment plan. Jody, will you take us into that, please?
Absolutely. I have, you'll hear us throw around ACP a lot, and that's
Yes,
what that
okay.
stands for. So
ATP,
we have
okay.
Dan Kieser, Molly Halberger, and Amanda Wagner to present an update for you this evening.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us tonight. We're getting the presentation up on the screen, hopefully. Maybe. Yep.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
on yet.
Connecting. All right.
Is there another option for technology?
So once we get the presentation up, I just want to introduce the team that will be doing the majority of the presentation. This is an action item. Annually, we'll be bringing this topic up for your approval as part of the state law that we present what our current demographics are in terms of our student population, where they are going, and what is our market within the Waukesha County area as well as within our community. So future board presentations will be more data-based as opposed to this first one, which will talk more about the academic and career planning process that we've put into place and has gone live this year. So as soon as we get that up, I'll be turning it over to Molly, our current technical education coordinator, and Amanda, who is our AVID and ACP coordinator.
Little technical difficulties tonight, huh?
Because I'm sitting next to them, I think.
Yeah. If you want to log in and then out. So while we're getting this up, we'll have Amanda start with talking about our vision for academic and career planning, and then hopefully we'll be up
Great.
there.
That's great. Thank you, Dan.
So this past spring and all of last year, we had a planning committee and did a pilot year of academic and career planning, and now we've hit the ground running here in 2017 and 18. And our mission for academic and career planning closely matches the vision and mission of Waukesha School District. And I'm going to read this to you. It's the impact of academic and career planning is to produce responsible graduates who will begin their adult life with the knowledge, skills, motivation, and a self-directed plan for career and lifelong success through lessons and resources that focus on career and college planning. So again, really mirrors what we're doing here in Waukesha. And we have a quick little video here to help everyone get a good grasp of what academic and career planning is, and this was made by DPI.
This is James, and this is Darla. James is really motivated in school. He loves science. Darla lives for cars. One thing they have in common is that their futures will work out better if they can get a little bit of their brain to start thinking right now about what they want to do. And that's why academic and career planning matters. You've probably heard about ACP by now. Did you know it's designed to help every single student and to involve the whole school? It's part of the whole student approach. Every educator has the opportunity to mentor kids. James' math teacher asks him a few good questions. It helps him learn to devote that brain space to identifying his personal strengths and interests within the field of science. Once James knows some careers he's interested in, teachers and community members start helping him think of ways to explore them while he's still in school. He acquires more confidence as he takes these baby steps into the working world. By the time he gets to his senior year, he's even going to try a youth apprenticeship in biotechnology at a place suggested by one of his teachers. And he never would have thought of it if it weren't for his teachers thinking about ACP. It turns out James wants to focus on different avenues. And if it weren't for the ACP process in middle and high school, who knows how many years and dollars it would have taken him and his family to figure that out and move him on to his next exploration. Now, Darla benefits from her school's career fair, where she talks to different professionals in the automotive field. She arranges a job shadow with an automotive technician, and she decides to explore automotive and aviation engineering. She even learns that for her goals, it'll help to have good literacy and math skills, too. Schools offer a lot of these options already, but it's the comprehensive nature of ACP that makes the most difference. It's more than the sum of its parts. With the help of many educators at their schools, James and Darla are not only motivated, but they're planning for college and career, personalizing their education and their experiences to align to their own sense of purpose, their unique visions for their future. No wonder it's part of the agenda of State Superintendent Tony Evers.
You know, we want to make sure that every child is a graduate, college and career ready. And in order to make that happen in the state of Wisconsin, we have to make sure that academic and career planning is part of every child's education.
This website has more about ACP in Wisconsin and tools to help you make the most of it in your school.
So
This is James.
So as Amanda said, this process has been in place and in the works for the last year, just kind of as a trial basis. And based on some feedback, we surveyed students, teachers, and building leaders to kind of get a handle on what they thought of the process. Last year, all the lessons were the same, no matter what grade the students were in. And we found that there was a definite need for lessons that were geared per each grade level. So we developed a team that was tasked to write lessons geared towards that specific grade level and what they should be exploring related to careers in college at that time. As a result, they determined some specific outlines for each grade level that will ensure each student in the school district of Waukesha, no matter what school is that they are at, will have the same experience and outcome. And we also provided principals and leadership teams with a launch of a reboot of the ACP for the reason why we do it, why it's important to our students' success, and some basic training that goes along with the computer program that's used.
So with that leadership team that came together on August 10th, they then took back what they learned and presented that to their buildings on August 23rd, our first day back for the Summer Institute, and we received some positive feedback from that. So what does this year look like? As Molly mentioned, we have differentiated lessons, grades 6 through 12. So each grade is looking at a different aspect of career and college readiness skills. We are giving each 6 through 12, 15 lessons that were written by our team. And these lessons are turnkey, meaning a teacher can grab them and go with them, or a building and its team can choose to modify those lessons to better fit the building and the needs of its students. Buildings are responsible then for the other Mondays that happen. So academic and career planning typically happens on a Monday. In most buildings, it's about anywhere, I think at the middle school level, runs about 25 minutes, and at the high school runs about 35 minutes. So on those other Mondays where we don't have the turnkey lessons created, buildings are using that time to work on their building goals, to connect it to their positive behavior intervention systems, to create a strong culture and build relationships in their building. So ultimately, each student has a portfolio, and that portfolio is outlined by grade level and learner outcomes.
So the portfolio, it's really just to allow the students to showcase all of the work that they've done in the exploration process from start to finish, and really look back on a comprehensive path that they have developed for themselves. You know, back when I was in school, I didn't have to think about my college plans until I was maybe a sophomore in high school, and now we have to think about it much, much sooner. And in addition, we have the opportunities that exist for our students to really explore some classes related to the careers that they might end up in. I don't know that that existed in the way that Waukesha has for our students, which is really just an amazing, amazing thing. So our goal is that each student leaves our school district with a portfolio that showcases really what they've explored, why they think it's a good fit, and what they're planning to do to become successful.
So ultimately this year, we are going to continue to work with our district team, and that is made up of teachers, administrators, and school counselors, and that team will meet quarterly. Our first action item is which we actually have completed, we provided a parent letter explaining the process of academic and career planning and what it's all about. And that was supposed to go out in school newsletters. We also are going to be working on a one-page summary, a nice visual handout of what academic and career planning is for our parents and to put up on our website. We will continue to check in with our building teams to see how things are going and to adjust. We really believe that this is our portfolio especially, it's a living, breathing document that's going to need to be tweaked. There are a couple pieces at each grade level that we would like to see every student have as a district. However, buildings are able to add other portfolio pieces as they wish to make it their own. We're going to be investigating a great opportunity called Inspire, which is a CISA tool to open up some networking and possibly set up some mentoring and or job shadowing for our students.
And not to be confused with Inspire at North.
Different one.
As Amanda said, part of the work that the team led by these two have been doing is capturing a lot of information that will be housed on our new district website as part of the redesign process. So I've already been working with Mary Jo to lay out what that website's going to look like, and so then we'll be able to update it and have not only all of the schools linked to one website, so it's a one-stop shop to update and it goes everywhere, but also for all of our partnerships. So as you can imagine, when Molly and myself go out to WCTC and go to the Business Alliance meetings, we can point to our website and have information from workforce development and labor, the Department of Labor statistics for our area, and then show directly how our programs within the school district are tying to that. And in addition, we are partnering with an organization called the National Student Clearinghouse. Those of you may have heard of that because Department of Public Instruction used to pay for every school district to have access to this. It tracks graduates for up to 6 years after they graduate, and it follows them through surveys, phone calls, other information tied to colleges and universities around the United States. So it'll tell us every year for the cohorts How many are enrolled, how many have stayed enrolled, where are they enrolled, if they've moved from a 2-year to a 4-year, if they moved out, if they've gotten a job, and so forth. So this is why we say that you're approving a plan this year, and annually you'll be approving our tweaks to the plan based on the data that we're not only getting from our partnerships like the Waukesha Maid and Business Alliance, but also from data sources that are coming from National Student Clearinghouse following our students as they graduate and move on. So, thank you.
Questions? Yes, Mr. Baumgart.
About Inspire, by the way.
Tricky.
Did we copyright that? We can go after the CISA to get that? No. Anyway, actually, I did have a question regarding this and Inspire, because, and you were at the meeting a couple weeks ago. Inspire has been working actively on what is your profession you're looking for, and what are your career plans and all that kind of stuff, and community involvement. And I guess it's a little bit of a concern. We've created a culture here where people are willing and ready to start doing things, and I sometimes worry, are they running off in the same direction as somebody else? Are you guys involving Inspire in this?
Yes, so this is every secondary school, so middle and high school, so all of our personalized learning environments, charters, and so forth. So absolutely. And part of the district team is that we have representation at each of the levels, and then also we have counselors as well. So when we meet as a district team, Luke Pinion will be invited to those so that both of us are on there, and that way when we have conversations, and I'll be joining the counseling monthly meetings. So absolutely, this will be a cross-functional team.
We maintain some uniformity, I guess. Yeah, thank you.
Important.
Thank you.
It's important. Any other questions? Okay, yes, Ms. Franchek.
Thank you. Okay, so this is taught on Mondays, 15 lessons, grades 6 through 12. Who teaches it? Is it like, are they
question.
in their homeroom? How does that work, or do they even have homeroom anymore?
Each school has their own term for this Monday time period. Some call it AE, some call it SOAR. They all have a different term for it, but it is designed to be similar to a homeroom where it's one teacher that has, or staff members, some of them are our student services team as well, that meet with a group of students. Typically, it's a specific grade level. Some of our schools do mixed grade levels, and then they loop with those kids, so they'll stay with them typically for their entire time. So if I started with 9th graders, I'd have them as 10th, 11th, and 12th, and really build that relationship, which I think is just really cool.
Great, because my second question were, how did the other teachers know what each child career is? Because on there, it looked like a bunch of teachers were just kind of, supporting them by joining them, but it's not like they wear a label that says machinery,
Right.
How would they know? But if that same teacher is walking through that with them, then they'll know and can grow with that.
And the career cruising tool does allow the students to save some work. And if I was a math teacher working on something in my math class related to careers, I might ask my students to log into that to see where their interests lie and use that as a teaching tool as well.
And another nice thing about career cruising is our parents have access to that as well. If the student chooses to invite the parent, they can get in and they can have some great conversations about career planning early on.
Any more, Karen?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Dietz?
The work that you're doing, is it similar to what other districts are doing, or do you think you're pretty unique in where you're headed? Can you learn and share with other districts, or?
Yeah, so every district has to come up with their own plan for academic and career planning. This is our answer to how and what it looks like and makes sense for our students in our schools with our staff. But we have reached out, and we've been a part of meetings at the state level. So there's definitely been collaborations across the districts. And also the fact that we're all putting these out on our district websites allows for people to take a look and say, hey, that's really cool how they did that. And part of our district level team will be to do check-ins. So this, like was mentioned, it'll be a living document. It shouldn't be the same 5 years from now as you see it today.
And just one other question. do portfolios start in sixth grade?
Correct.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, could you explain to me on Mondays, is everybody going to have a free period on Mondays so that this can be accomplished?
That's
Okay.
already built into all the school schedules.
It
The
will.
opposite Mondays, this typically would take place about once a month. The opposite Mondays then are the school's discretion to use for PBIS, culture, community work. It just kind of depends on what the school
And what
decides.
time of the day would that be? Or will it be the same at all schools?
I think it's all,
Yeah.
the high schools and middle schools, it's the
Yes.
same.
So is it the middle of the day, the end of the day, beginning of the day?
It's right after second hour, so I believe 9:05,
Okay, okay.
at least at the high school.
Oh, that's great. So it's a separate course. It's not just something that's integrated. Wow, I really like that. Okay, I wanted to know on the third page or the second white page, you have learner outcomes. Could you just quickly explain what each one, what the outcome, what each one would want to have students accomplish, like ACP, intro, learning styles, think sheet, SMART goals?
So those are all pieces of the portfolio. They're activities that lessons are developed around, and those would be the pieces that we'd want to see the students complete. They're anything from researching careers, looking at learning styles and how that fits how you learn in a school. Different SMART goals. Every year they reset SMART goals. They look at matchmaker inventories, college research. I mean, there's a huge gamut depending on the grade level, but what we tried to do is pull out some high leverage ones that we really think will be meaningful for the student to look back at over time.
Well, the beauty of this whole thing is that you've developed it by grade levels, and that is so necessary for student success. Who's going to teach these classes?
Every teacher,
Everyone.
everyone, all of us.
What do you mean, all of you?
Every teacher, every student services team member in each building
Gotcha.
has a team.
Okay, great.
And that's why we felt it was really important to give buildings at least 15 lessons that were turnkey so people could go into it with the knowledge and the skill that they needed.
Right.
And that launch that we did in August, we spent a whole half day talking about the importance of ACP, going through different lessons by grade level so people did feel comfortable.
Now, this is a state mandate also, isn't it? Correct. Right. So you've done something very creative with our district in putting this together to accomplish this. This is wonderful. Just as recent as 3 years ago, kids left high school with no idea whatsoever about college, careers, et cetera. So this is going to be a very, very valuable, and I'm sure the parents will agree that these kids will have a better idea of where they're going when they graduate than they ever did before. So thank you for this. This is really some good stuff. So keep us in touch with how things are going. Maybe at semester time, I'd be interested in hearing how this is going. Maybe even bring some students along. Be great to hear that. So any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much. Very much appreciated. Yes, I was just going to go there. Okay, we have a motion.
I'll make a motion
Okay,
that we approve the academic and career planning and education for employment program.
okay. Is there a second, please? Second by Ms. Ranchek. Okay, any other further discussion, questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? 5-0. Tracy. Okay, thank you again. Okay, the approval of the 2017-2018 overnight trips. Take us through that?
Right, thank you. We're asking for approval this evening of 3 trips that were originally in your packet. I just want to bring attention to the West High School Academic Decathlon. That's the state competition this year. It's in the Wisconsin Dells. Horning Flight Squad is planning a trip to Chicago in April. And then the Saratoga STEM 8th grade trip to New York City. Those were originally in your packet, asking for action request. And then also in addition to that, we added one overnight that we wanted to get in this month as well. And that's Waukesha South, the orchestra and choir retreat is planning their Camp Whitcomb Mason. So we're asking, seeking your approval on those 4 overnight trips this month.
Okay, any questions? Any comments? Well, I'd like to just thank the people that submitted these. They were most nearly perfect. Every aspect, that you could cross-check was there. It was really, and thank you, Stacy, for putting that form together. There's not a way that you can't answer all the questions and everything that we're concerned about without filling this out. So it's going to be helpful. Thank you. Okay, we have 4 field trips on the agenda. Could we have a motion, please? To accept that? Okay. A second to Mr. Dietz's motion. Second, please.
Second.
Okay, second. So moved and seconded that we approve the 2017-2018 overnight field trip requests. Any further comments, questions, discussion? Okay, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0 again. Thank you. Okay, now we get into the information items. Take us into the first item, Jody, technology update.
Thank you. I just want to make mention of this, just kind of review for the board as well as the audience, I guess. So last year, my first year also, this, we had an added agenda item every month around student achievement update, okay? And so this is year 2, so as you'll see, Les Paul is here this evening, and we'll continue to update you on some hard data around our student achievement gains. I also want to make mention that I decided to add this in as a recurring agenda item around technology because the school board, yourselves involved, have developed so as part of our board priorities that you want to hear more about how iPads are improving student instruction at all levels, okay?
Right.
So this is a very intentional agenda item, as you will see forthcoming and recurring. And so this is our first hot off the press
Great.
update. And Patty Hovell, who's our Director of Special Education, is going to hopefully introduce the team this evening. And so thank you for our first technology presentation this evening around assistive technology.
Thank you for explaining that, Jody. I'm looking forward to that this
Okay.
year. Well, welcome.
Thank you. Assistive technology is defined as any strategy or tool that allows a person with a disability to access a life activity or to do it with greater independence. Obviously, that's a really critical piece that we can provide to students in our district, and we are very fortunate to have 3 certified and licensed AT specialists in the district. They're going to tell you more about how we provide assistive technology using district iPads, but first I will have them introduce themselves
Great.
and what their primary role is in the district as well as where.
Hi, I'm Nicole Gazer. I'm a speech-language pathologist at Hawthorne Lab School and do assistive technology throughout the district. Hi, I'm Jessica Parlier. I'm an occupational therapist for the district, and I service a handful of our elementary and secondary schools.
And I'm Jen Tyson. I'm a speech and language pathologist, and I work at Hadfield Elementary, and then I do assistive technology throughout the district as well.
Nice variety of skills involved therein. Great.
So we have a few videos to show you today. Just a little background about how many students we see and provide consultations for. There's about 1,800 students in our district that are identified with some special education. Approximately 160 students are currently using some form of assistive technology. Last year we had about 40 referrals that the 3 of us did, and we had about an additional 20 informal consultations. So the video that you're gonna see now is a ChoiceWorks app, it's called, and it's on the iPad. It is used to create visual schedules for students that might need some help throughout the day, reminding them what their schedule is and breaking down some tasks that they might need to do. And this app really increases students' independence, and it also reduces their anxiety. So this is just a video that I took while working with a student, so it's not a professional video you'll see, but it kind of demonstrates some tasks that they needed to do in speech.
It says Sarah speech schedule.
Yeah. Hot and cold.
First we have hot and cold.
Mitten sort.
Mitten sort.
Book.
A book. And then what?
Sticker.
Yay!
So after she completes each task, she can move it over and then she knows it's all done. So the next video we're going to show is an example of an application that we might recommend for a student who is struggling in the area of writing. The application being demonstrated is called Clicker Sentences, and this application allows a teacher to create an electronic word bank that can assist a student in generating thoughts and ideas, using proper grammar, correct syntax in a sentence, and then also coming up with appropriate sentences for a given topic that they are writing about.
Clicker Sentences, an innovative app from Crig Software, develops writing skills in young pupils, struggling writers, and English language learners, helping them build their first sentences one word at a time. They just tap on the words to write their sentences. Realistic speech support enables active engagement with the text and encourages pupils to reread their sentences to find and correct errors for themselves.
The butterfly pushes itself out of the chrysalis.
Pupils simply swipe to get to the next sentence, and they benefit from child-friendly tools and different types of model sentences to match their needs, including a model on the grid, an auditory model, and a pop-up model. Children can extend their learning using the simple keyboard to change or add to their sentences. Clicker Sentences enables you to quickly create sentence-building activities on any topic and to modify them to meet your pupils' needs. Simply type or paste your sentences and then add a model, change the order of the words and the colour of the grid, and even include a picture with the sentence.
So now I'm going to talk about communication applications that students are provided on the iPad. Many students in our district are nonverbal and or struggle to be able to communicate their thoughts and ideas or wants and needs. This is due to a varying degree of disabilities. There's many applications that can be provided for students to use on the iPad to help them communicate or to supplement verbal output that they have. So the video that we're going to share with you next is a video of a little girl that's using an application called Proloquo to Go, which is a very robust communication application, and it's about 2.5 minutes, and it shows her communicating with a therapist.
My name is Michael. I'm the father of Vanessa. Vanessa's 3 years old, and she's diagnosed with PDD, it's mild form of autism. She wasn't playing with other kids. She wasn't babbling, really showing any type of emotions. Basically, she's very to herself, and we knew right away something was off.
Vanessa, what animal is this? Brown. Oh, it is brown, but what animal is it? Horse. Good girl, it is a horse. Say, very smart, big girl. Okay, you ready? Can you tell me what this one is? Cow. That's good talking. Cow. You're right, it is a cow. Good girl. What does a cow say? Ooh. Good job. Look at this. Good job. Good girl, are you ready? Say yes. Okay. What animal is this one? Good girl. High five. Good job. Do you want to read books? Do you want to play with the cups? What do you think?
I want cups.
Oh, you want to play with cups. Okay. That sounds like a great idea.
One of our students, Vanessa, began using Proloquo to go on an iPad a few months ago, and she's doing some really exciting things. Something that we've seen that's been very exciting since she's used the Proloquo to Go app is more initiations of verbalizations from her. So we're hearing her babble more, we're hearing her attempt to communicate expressively more, and she's really matching the model of the Proloquo to Go app more accurately over time.
Okay, so that was just one example of a communication application that could be provided to a student to help them be able to communicate. The other thing that we did want to mention about the iPad in general is that even without applications, Apple has done a fantastic job of providing accessibility features. And with each new iOS update, they're coming out with more and more features. There's features to help children with vision concerns, hearing concerns, interaction concerns. There are many ways that you can just go into the settings and change the accessibility features for each given student, and there are times when we will also consult on helping a team figure out the best accessibility features that are available for students.
Questions?
Wow.
It's, okay, nobody has,
I have a question.
okay, go ahead, Mr. McCarthy.
Are we using all these programs in the district?
The three that we showed you are all applications that we do use in the district.
Okay, and then we are seeing gains
Yes.
by the children?
Yes, we are
with
seeing
using
gains.
these programs, and they're discernible. Because at the board level, we spend a lot of money on this technology, and and I know it's hard to get concrete data that says this iPad is helping this child or raising his score or helping that child speak better or do their work better. And I think that one of the priorities that we put through, for me, I'm speaking for me, of course, was that we can better explain and show how the investment that we're making in these devices is actually helping student achievement. So, and these were fantastic, and I'm familiar with these programs as well, but I just want to make sure that our children are also experiencing the gains that these children.
I can speak from personal experience of having a student that I'm his assistive technology specialist as well as his speech language pathologist. He's a student with autism, completely nonverbal when he started using the Proloquo to Go application. Since using it, he is able to initiate with his peers, both verbally and with the application. He's able to initiate with staff, both verbally and with the application. His special education teacher worked with me and regular education staff in order to program it to help him learn to read. And now he is using the Proloquo to Go application as a tool to help him read as well. So that's my own personal experience, and he did all of that in about a year and a half with Proloquo to Go. So he's made fantastic progress using that application. That same student also uses one of the clicker applications as well as ChoiceWorks, and he is able to independently move throughout the building with the use of ChoiceWorks, and he's able to create sentences now for writing, which was something he was never able to do before.
Excellent, excellent.
And whenever we consider implementation for assistive technology, we always assist the team in creating a goal on the student's individualized education plan. So just on a broader scale, that's how we as therapists and teachers can measure growth over time. That tends to be a little bit more measurable. So that is another way that we can honestly say, yes, these things are working.
Fantastic, thank you very much.
These devices that you showed us tonight, just probably one area that we have that we use with our students. What are some other assistive devices that we have?
Well, from an occupational therapy
Yes.
standpoint, we definitely have low-tech devices. So students with physical needs, you might see them using some kind of a raised slant board when they're writing. They use different pencil grips if there's a dexterity issue that prevents them from grasping a pencil properly. We can get as simple as a $10 grip up to, a very expensive application. And because of the users in our district, we see a wide range of those things out there, so.
What about students that have, that are not sighted? They don't see? That are-
Well, we do have vision teachers in the district, so we do have students who use Braille, but I also have a student who is low vision who uses a separate keyboard that through the Bluetooth can connect to his iPad for two reasons. Number one, that provides some tactile feedback on the keyboard, but then when he's using the keyboard, you can remove the on-screen keyboard of the device, which enlarges the area that he's looking at when he's writing.
Are all the vision students in one building, in one classroom, or are they all over the district?
They are not. I think they are primarily in their home schools.
In their home school, so then the vision teacher has to go from school to school. Okay, very good. Yes, Karen? Joe?
I think that one thing that as we get these updates, prior to coming to Waukesha, I worked in a district that was beginning a one-to-one initiative, and they were focusing on Chromebooks. And Chromebook is a nice device, but when we were having conversations around students with disabilities, particularly at the secondary level, they still needed the iPad to access the reading apps that were on there, the touch apps, the ProLoco to Go, all of that needed to be there. But when kids were at the secondary level, all of their peers had a Chromebook, and they were reaching for an iPad. And the benefit of having the uniformity across Waukesha is you may have a student with autism who needs the iPad to communicate. You may have a student who struggles a little bit in reading who can use the iPad to get the text to speech. And you may have a student who's gifted and is doing an extended activity, but they're all doing it in the same platform. And I think that is the benefit, the functionality of the iPad, where kids just want to look like their peers. I mean, they just want to fit in. And that's the benefit of having a device that provides all of that to the kids in our district, so.
Joe, at one time, school districts, including ours, used to have separate classrooms for special needs kids. But now they're in their homerooms with regular kids, and they're integrated into regular classrooms. What's been the outcome of that as far as their learning is concerned?
I think that we just did some professional development with our cabinet in and around this topic, and the idea of inclusion, right? I mean, it used to be segregated facilities.
Oh, yes.
You go back to the 1970s, 60s, 50s, kids didn't even go to their public school. And then when they started going to their public school, they were put in a special classroom, and that's where the education happened. As that evolved, kids would get maybe a math period in a special education classroom, and the rest of their day would be with their peers, core subjects. And then we went to what was a full inclusive model, and I think what we're doing right now is we're looking at what's the instructional approach. I think that the outcomes socially have been much better than what they were. Academically, we continue to work on what the outcomes are for our students with disabilities, but I think that we have that conversation for all kids. How are we continuing to meet the needs of all of the learners in our system? So that is an ongoing area of growth for us as a district, and then in the field of education, we're always looking at how do we get better.
Okay, Joe, one more question, if you please. Let's say we have a fifth grader, and the fifth grader, a fifth grade aged student, and we're gonna incorporate him or her into a regular classroom, but his or her reading level is maybe first or second grade. How are we going to provide instruction?
Through a multitude of ways. We have the workshop format where students are having a differentiated experience, fifth grade material. Sometimes students are accessing a tiered text. Sometimes when they're looking at grade level text and they have the iPad in front of them, the iPad can provide the text to speech, so that those students can follow along at the grade level text, but they might be getting an intervention from their teacher on how to get their skills caught up.
Their special
So-
ed teacher.
Yeah, or a regular ed teacher who's skilled in literacy instruction.
Okay, great. So do these specialist teachers go with the students to the classroom or not necessarily?
It really depends on the grade level and what the need is at the grade level.
Okay, great. How great for children that have needs. Yes, Ms. Ranchik.
Thank you. Okay, a couple questions. Are they able to take them home? Yeah, most of them? Depends on
It's
the
an
student?
individual IEP team decision, and
Okay.
we look at how they would be using the iPad at home. We work on training the families and helping them learn how they could use the communication application at home or the scheduling application at home, but it's usually a decision made with the IEP team and the family.
Okay. And then another is, we hear from parents sometimes saying the kids have too much screen time and they're loving these a little bit too much. I'm sure now that these kids have a tool to help them communicate, they're loving them. Do you ever get complaints from the parents that it's too much? Or are they just thankful that they can have something to use?
I've never received a complaint.
Thank you. All right, and the last one is, if we have 1,800 kids with special needs and we only have 160 using the assistive technology, are the other ones still using technology or nothing?
Definitely, and these are just the numbers that the kids that we track. So there could be more students out there not on our spreadsheets that are using assistive technology, but these have actually come through as referrals that we've consulted on.
And what's great about the iPad product is because it has so many built-in accessibility features, the students that we are tracking are those kids who are getting above and beyond what the iPad can already provide for our students. So there are several features that a teacher can control that wouldn't necessarily constitute it as assistive technology because it's available to all of our learners.
Thank you.
So do the iPads have different programs on them for the kids that have special needs, or are they the same that the regular ed kids have?
Each time that there's an assistive technology consultation, we initially look at just adding whatever application is needed
Okay.
to their Waukesha One iPad.
Okay.
So it does look exactly the same as other students.
Sure.
However, there are times when we do also need a standalone device, usually for a child that's using that tool as a communication device, so that they can still be using their educational tool as well as the ability to communicate, because we never want to take that child's voice away from them.
So the tool that they use to help, speak for them, they take that home, I would assume.
Sometimes they do.
Sometimes.
Yes.
So what do they do at home if they don't have that device?
Oftentimes, our families learn how to anticipate their children's need,
Yes.
and they can just anticipate that need and help their child through that anticipation of the need.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, anything else? Well, thank you for that information. It's always important to know that all of our students are receiving, instruction that best works for them, and here's a wonderful example. So thank you for all your hard work. I'm familiar with what you do, and we're very proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica, okay.
Okay, let's see. The next item is, Summer Institute.
Yes, so hot to trot off of a really successful Summer Institute.
yes.
I'm pleased to reintroduce to you Dan Kieser and Melissa Yao, and they're going to give you some huge celebrations about our most recent professional learning here in Waukesha.
I'm glad you said the word celebration, because indeed it is. Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, and our technology's working.
Yay. Awesome. Well, we just wanted to share with you a big, huge celebration from a few weeks ago, August 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. We gathered together as a district to learn at our Summer Institute. And so we wanted to come and share some highlights and stories from that learning together. So teachers had the opportunity to choose their own path. There were some required sessions based on their grade level or content or area that they teach, and then they also had sessions of choice. And the whole goal of our Summer Institute aligns with the district's theory of action, that we wanted to increase employee performance, engagement, and productivity, because we want it to lead to an increase in our students' success defined through community and college and career readiness.
As you can imagine, it's a large endeavor to get 1,000+ teachers and speakers in all the sessions organized. So we used a web-based program called Sketch to help organize and manage all of this. And so, as you can see on the screen, we had a little over 1,000 attendees that could choose from 384 different sessions that were personalized to their pathways. Some required, some optional, and we had 236 individuals who presented those 300+ sessions.
So a big place out there, one place to learn, is called Twitter, and I'm sure a lot of you know about it. But we created our own hashtag for our Summer Institute, and it was called SDW Positive Impact, because we believe that our teachers make a positive impact on our students in the district. And so these were a few of our teachers shouting out the positive impact. Language workshop, it's not our time to talk. Let the learners do the talking to make the meaning. Fabulous final thoughts, talk, and tools around student agency will hit the ground running next week. Failing is not failure. Learn from it and adjust your thinking. Collaboration at its maximum. La collaboration al maximo.
So in addition to all the feedback we got on the days of the Institute, we sent out a survey on the very last day of the Institute at the end of the day and left it open for 5 full days, including the weekend. We had 503 responses, so imagine you had the 1,000+, that was a 48% response rate, which is fantastic. And we asked them 4 simple questions, and you can see the questions up on the screen, and the percentages reflect the agree and strongly agree with those 4 statements. We averaged a total of 90% across the 4 questions, and we're very happy with the positive response, including the fact that 94% of our staff felt that the Summer Institute was well organized for all of the moving parts and pieces to it. So we want to thank all of the board members who were able to come and join in one or more of the sessions during the day, and we look forward to planning our next Summer Institute, which has already begun.
Well, I have to say, it was phenomenal. I spent 2 full days there, and even though I'm retired, there were many, many things that interested me as a board member and as an individual. They were extremely well organized. The people that did the presenting were very knowledgeable and understanding of the needs of adult learners. And the movement between classes was great. It was, the only thing that was a problem was parking in the morning. I mean, they were parked along the highway. There were so many cars. The parking lots were loaded. So I'm assuming this was mandated by the district for everyone.
Yes.
Right, okay, so therefore you had many, many wonderful sessions to meet the needs of everyone, I thought. So, anyone else have anything they want to add? Okay, it was great compliments to you and your team. It was a phenomenal learning experience. Yes, Mr. Dietz.
Some of the sessions will be repeated based on feedback of what people said they would like to have again, and also based on the number of people. The program that we used, Sketch, let us know how many people wanted to take the session. We had a waiting list at first, but then we tried to adjust room assignments so we could get everyone who wanted to be in a session, but we had a few that we had to adjust at the end as people made last-minute switches and those kinds of things. And then we will base on feedback and where our learning takes us this year, and as teachers give sessions that they would like to present or ask for topics. We built it all around that input.
And the presenters, Melissa, did they present all sessions, or did they have the opportunity for professional development too?
Nope, we made sure that everyone that presented had time to learn as well. So some people might have presented one session, some people might have presented 4 sessions, but we made sure that everybody, even our directors, coordinators, coaches who presented, they had time to learn as well.
Yes.
This was run the 22nd, 23rd, 20.
Yeah.
And we had about 100 new teachers in the district at that
Correct.
time. I assume they were incorporated in this somehow, but
They were.
They were.
did they have some kind of guidance as to what, I mean, this is kind of a
Yes.
first day on the
had-
job and you got these.
Yeah, we created pathways for everyone based on their grade level and content area to help guide them on when, if they had a required course, what session that was offered then, and so then they would know when they could select courses, which also helped our new teachers. And so Chris Hedstrom in the HR department helped as
good.
new teachers came in and Chris met with them. She gave them directions, and then they were able to contact Dan, myself, or Sharon Thede if they had questions, or their principals for support as well.
Thank you.
But also, in response to Mr. Baumgart's question, there were a lot of grade level things, like kindergarten, and then there was primary and intermediate. There were a lot of grade level things, and if you're in elementary, you teach, the total curriculum, so I just thought it was very well covered. How many teachers did you say, 300 some that presented?
Just under 300 presenters, yes.
And each one of them were so well informed and great at adult learning, really. Now you think of 300 and some, there's probably another 300 sitting in our classrooms or more that could do the same thing. Teachers of adults, teachers of teachers, teachers of students, outstanding.
We're very lucky in Waukesha to
Oh,
have
we are.
great leadership and
We do.
knowledgeable educators that we
We
can all
do.
learn from.
I agree, thank you. It was a wonderful institute. I can't wait till next year. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, student achievement update.
Right, thank you. So, as mentioned earlier, this is part of our continuous
Yes.
cycle of updating you on student achievement. I want to also remind everyone that the data presented today, along with subsequent schools, is data that represents the work of our SAIL framework, okay? And SAIL, again, standing for School Administrators Institute for Transformational Leadership. So we operate in Waukesha under a SAIL framework, which is a continuous improvement framework upon which each school does goal setting around some strategic objectives and then has measurable results to show. So little by little, we'll be bringing these schools to you, and they'll be reporting out on their progress thus far under this framework. So tonight, I want to also just remind you of our director structure, right? So you see Dee Garcia sitting here with Rob and Gina and Ryan. So each of our directors has 3 schools that they really are wrapping support around for their director sales support. So this is one of Dee's schools in Les Paul, and we'll let the team take it away.
Thank you for explaining that, Jody. That's important. Welcome.
Hi. Thanks so much for having us tonight. It's good to see you all back in school. Welcome back. I've had the great pleasure of working with Rob Bennett, Gina Bailey, and Ryan Green for the past year as their sale coach, and specifically as a support mechanism to their sale process and to Rob's leadership of that process. And it's just been a real pleasure to work with them. They are really knowledgeable, very committed, and forming a good cohesion around the work that they're doing at Les Paul Middle School. So a special shout out to Les Paul, as it was my middle school when I was a child here in Waukesha, so I have a special affinity for what they do there, and just want to let them showcase their work tonight, so take it away.
Great. Thanks for having us. The first, as we'll get into it, the mission, just kind of setting the stage and some images there for you to see our students. Every school has a mission and a vision to provide the best for every student. And if you walk through our halls and through our building, our mission's kind of taken on its own mantra of being able to open every door for every student on our staff, that all staff are responsible for all students, and trying to live that mission and vision each and every day. Over the course of the last few years, that mission and vision is increased as our enrollment is increased. So the impact you'll see further in the slides today is growing. Our building's growing, our student population is growing, so the more impact that we will have. Up on the screen, you just see some different things, the wide range of things that we're offering for students. And we'll talk about those kids that you see there. The reason you see those kids those are the kids that the work has had the impact on. And those are the kids that when you've come through the hallways, you've seen, you've heard, and you've watched them do amazing things. As Jody mentioned, the sale process is something the district has undertaken and has been a great step for us to continue our journey to focus our school improvement plans, to put clarity around the work that we're doing, and to do what that bottom line says, to give all students some power to engage in learning at high levels and to minimize achievement gaps and demonstrate continued success. Earlier today, you heard about college and career readiness. You heard about academic and career planning, and all of that work is being tied together in great efforts to give every student an opportunity when they leave us at the middle school level and where they go to at the high school level. Some of the things that have been really greatly focused on working within a growth mindset and utilizing feedback within our building. The goal, when you walk into a classroom, you're going to see every student engaged 100% of the time, and that's something that I give Dee great credit to, who she's pushed us to do that and to make sure that that's happening, and something that we're working extremely hard to do, making sure that every student has a voice, every student is engaged, every student is involved at some level in some way, shape, or form.
So the growth mindset and effective feedback are probably some themes that you've heard throughout the district, and they've helped us really focus in the basis of our framework here within the sale process. We've also done a lot of work collecting data at the building level that's helped us determine our next steps, not only for students and where we're hoping for our students to learn and grow, but also with our staff. And so that's led to our staff development over the last year or so here with focusing in on book studies and things of that nature, which will help our staff grow within the growth mindset framework, and then our coaching cycles, which have become centered around effective feedback, kind of modeling with our teachers that process, and then coaching them up on the best ways to get the most leverage out of the effective practice with giving feedback.
We lost it again. We lost it. Well, if you could see.
Patty, can you help these people?
Where's Molly?
We lost the connection.
As the team is trying to find the slide, they mentioned a few times working on feedback and Rob's journey in leading his team. They started out with ensuring that feedback was occurring to some extent in every single classroom upon visitation. And the team here came together and was able to ensure with a group of 4, including Joe Biney, their assistant principal, that all teachers were visited on multiple occasions to provide feedback to them about the amount that they were engaging their students by providing the students feedback. They've actually taken that to a whole nother level this year, which I'm happy is one of your next coming slides. So I'll let you talk about that.
So as Dee talked about the impact from our actions, many of those things are you're seeing the impact upon our students, but in the lower right corner is the actions of our staff in order to see the impact from our actions. And there's someone in the room that inspired me to talk about this impact for actions. What do we do to see that our kids are succeeding? In it is having an impact right now. As we the next slide that we'll get into is demonstrating exactly what Dee has spoken about, taking time to make a shift in our instructional practice as teachers so that that impact of our students is felt, so that it is there. We had collected data through building walkthrough tools to see, is the practice occurring, where is it occurring, and how is it occurring, and trying to take the shift from teacher-centered to student-centered. What were students doing? What were students doing with the feedback provided? And a couple of just data pieces for you to take a look at. On the left-hand side of the screen, as you look at it, a lot of things were very large group oriented. Teacher giving feedback to the whole group, teacher giving feedback to large groups of students. And as we moved through the year and as professional development was given, feedback from staff was received and taken, things were delivered in a way that was meaningful to them and supports that they needed, there was a shift from large group feedback to small group into one-on-one, and noticing now what can students do with that individualized feedback to improve their work, to improve the quality of the work.
I think some of this too is what Dee had mentioned, where we started out like, are we giving feedback and what type of feedback are we giving, to learning more through our professional development about what is the most effective setting for feedback, what are the most effective parts of giving that feedback, and what do we want to see out of our students, and then trying to collect data around that and again, advance our professional learning to see that growth.
When we hear feedback, a lot of us think of the feedback that we give to kids, but we also wanted teachers to realize that feedback is something that you get from kids and how important their voice is in next steps. And so as we went through the year, we transitioned to that. Over the past 2 years, we've done some collegial studies around some texts and things. We started by looking at the brain and how it works and how feedback changes the brain and how instruction changes the brain. And then last year, as a whole staff, we had we read and discussed Opening Minds by Peter Johnston, and we looked at that throughout the year. So we would come back and we would experience some of the practices along with the chapters that we had read, also modeling some literacy strategies that we hope people would carry through into their practice as teachers. But we did notice that not only were teachers getting feedback and paying attention to the feedback from kids increasingly through their consciousness, but also we saw a shift and we started having kids give feedback to each other in ways that we hadn't seen as much in the past. And so we looked at, that throughout the year, and we looked at our walkthroughs and the data we were collecting there. So what you see is really a compilation of that data from our walkthroughs and what we noticed just in those short visits in classrooms.
But the biggest bang for the buck is up on the screen that you see here, and this is what did kids do with it. One of the things that we've done over the course of the last 5 years is tracked cohorts of groups. So rather than comparing apples to oranges, what did sixth graders, how did they come in and how did they leave? Looking at those groups of students, were we making gains? Were we having an impact? You'll see we've looked at our sixth graders from last year, our seventh graders 2 years, and our eighth graders from 3 years ago, looking at where they have gone. What have they come to us with and where are they going?
CCR is College and Career Readiness.
Thank you.
And what that is it's a benchmark that MAP can give us at each grade level in about the 70th percentile. It's a projection for their college and career readiness based on an ACT in 10th grade then.
And you'll notice we didn't use percentiles for the kids because we wanted it to be clear that each of those students we're talking about is a person and a student who's going to go out and be ready for career or college or whatever comes their way. And somehow a percentile of 50, 60, 70% doesn't seem as much as 64, that sixth grade group at the beginning of the year, 64 kids meeting that readiness benchmark, and at the end of the year, 132 meeting that readiness benchmark in reading. In math, 41 at the beginning of the year, but 108 when they met at the end of the year, and they met those standards in math. When you look down to our eighth graders and our 3 years with them, you'll see when they came in, they were struggling. We had 22 kids out of the group of 201 at that point who were meeting those college and career readiness benchmarks. But when they left, 128 in reading and 42 up to 110 in math. So for each of those kids, that's a success story. They went from, under many of them, under 30th, 40th percentile to 70th percentile or above in that time with us, and we're pretty proud of that.
Barbara, can I ask you? Do you know what? Can I ask you a question on that? When you're talking about the sixth graders, seventh graders, eighth graders, are you measuring them against a different standard when they're in eighth?
I was actually just going to point that out. The benchmark obviously increases each year as they take. It's the same test that they're taking with the MAP sixth grade and above. Okay. But as you're looking at these benchmarks, they will increase each year for each subject.
Yeah, there's a variety of RIT scores that they meet per grade level.
I'm sorry, Brad.
They're called RIT scores. I don't even know what RIT stands for.
It just basically
But
means
it's-
their overall
It's a
score.
measurement of a grade level of competency.
You ask board members love your academic terminology.
So it's a standard that they are to meet based on their grade level at that point in the
At that
year.
point. Thank
So the hope is when they come in, they're at this benchmark, and then when they leave, they're at this
Yes.
benchmark. So the growth, depending on the year in school, the growth can be anywhere, expected growth can be anywhere from 4 to 7 points for a student.
All right,
So there's a MAP test for each grade level?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I thought.
When you look at the numbers too, you might say, well, Rob, Gina, Ryan, some of those numbers aren't identical. Some kids may not have tested in a session, some kids may
Right.
not have completed a session, so some of them don't match exactly. But the intent is to try to measure groups of students, not comparing one group to another group, as they all come in with different entry points and looking to see is what is being done for those groups of students having an impact. Some of the numbers that aren't up there, you might say, well, there's still almost 100 kids who aren't college and career ready. You're right, there's still work to do, but there are many of those kids who have been able to identify in need of intervention, different instructional approaches that are their needs are being met in different ways. And some of those students that you don't see in a number, the student number 130 may have been at the 8th percentile but finished the year at the 30th percentile. And for that student, that was growth, and that's one door open that was closed prior, to be able to move them forward.
And we've been monitoring progress in other ways too. MAP is one standardized way that we can measure, but the teachers through their PLCs and their work with students and their conferring and all of those kinds of things are charting student growth in many different ways. One of the things that we worked very hard to do last year was to have interventions in place from the start of the school year, or the availability for interventions in place from the start of the school year. And we looked at kids who were at the 25th percentile and below at the beginning of the year. So across the school last year, we had 98 students in reading interventions with our literacy teachers. And they went through the training of the CLM practices for intervention at the start of the year and started with those students. And so of our most neediest kids, of those 98 students, 12 of those kids shifted over to a college and career readiness benchmark by the end of the year. So to go from the 25th percentile or below to the 70th percentile or above was a huge growth, and that was across grades 6, 7, and 8. So we do have, in terms of literacy, we have that CLM model in place in all of the classrooms for the general workshop instruction, but we also have now in place that intervention piece for our students who need it the most.
So how many interventionists do you have on your staff, or are they people that come in and go to many other schools?
No, when we had a shift in the schedule, we scheduled our literacy teachers, because we want the most talented teachers in the
Yes.
room with those kids.
Yes.
We scheduled our literacy teachers, several of them, for an intervention block. So one of their
Okay.
teaching assignments is intervention. So they meet with the students each day for that block of time.
Okay.
And they have a group and then we look at that after each intervention cycle and decide if if the student needs to stay in the intervention or if they can be moved out. So every 6 to 8 weeks, we take a look at that group of kids and
Okay.
decide.
Does the interventionist work with the student in the classroom, or do you have another place for them to work with the
The
student?
type of intervention that we do is a comprehension focus group, and so that would be very difficult to do in the classroom when the other
Sure.
kids are all in a different text.
Absolutely.
So for the most part, they go to that teacher's classroom.
Well, that's good, because, there would be interference when the students
Right.
are doing other
And
activities.
it's still in the same grade level, it's in their
Yes,
wing,
yes,
it's just,
yes.
it's a room down the hall.
Yes.
And we're also working on basically developing a very similar model for the math intervention as well. So we tried some things last year, and we're working on training some of our math teachers to deliver a similar style of intervention.
So you've had a lot of success with this model, haven't you? Wow, wonderful.
Our intervention model last year, it was a learning curve because the teachers were trying to learn it along with,
Sure.
share it with students, and they all worked closely with me the first couple weeks so that we could, train together but in the practice of it, they got to know those readers so well, and because they're in that same team and in that same PLC, with the teachers of the student, so the classroom teacher teachers in a PLC with the intervention teacher. And so they could have some great conversations about what those students needed across, so that because oftentimes we do a really good job with intervention, but we don't get the transfer we desire. So this allowed a much better opportunity for transfer back to the classroom.
Would you say that sixth graders entering that have needs, when they're in eighth grade, have you seen definitely an improvement?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay.
Yes.
That's your goal.
You know, just thinking of some of the kids who, well, when I think about the sixth graders that we had this year, last year, those numbers dropped by about half in terms of the kids that need to carry over into the seventh grade intervention, which is a success. And then it looks a little bit different at eighth grade because the schedule's a little different than it does at seventh. But the eighth grade teachers have really focused on cross-content strategies, so that there will be carryover into those content classrooms. So even though it looks different, it's still showing benefit for our kids.
Is this unique to your school, or is it throughout the
The
district?
middle schools are all adopting this comprehension intervention model.
Okay.
They're being trained, and it's handled, again, a little differently in each school in terms of scheduling and things, but the students have those opportunities for growth.
So this is under the SAIL program?
The SAIL guidance has helped us really focus.
Okay.
Rather than trying to do so many things
Yes.
at a very thin level, really trying to dig deeper and have a larger impact. Trying to make sure the right people are with the right group of kids. It's been a monumental shift in just the way kids react to conversations from teachers, the conferring pieces that occur, the language that's used with kids. It might be silly to some, but even a t-shirt last year that all staff wore, it was a success. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And just the way you live within the building, not letting kids settle, making sure 100% of kids are getting a chance to provide feedback, that they're engaged in lessons, and that's a challenge. But some of the things that we've done, the staff have engaged in, the learning that they've engaged in, the effort kids have put forward, because we could put in all the effort, but if the kids aren't going to buy into it.
Right.
So it's just the way kids are spoken to, kids speak to each other, staff speak to each other. And it leads to where we're headed next. One of the things was a change in some scheduling. We were giving common planning time to people to allow them to share data, to share strategies. Classroom visits among staff. They are visiting each other's classrooms to see strategies in place. The feedback is a continuous cycle, that it's not just adult to student. When you see kids be empowered to give feedback back to teachers in a constructive, meaningful way, those conversations are endless. We've changed the way we've done things on respect and responsibility with expectations, taking AVID strategies this summer. And when you look at it, you're like, boy, this is a lot of things. But SAIL has allowed a lot of things to have focus and be connected. And we've really dug into two things: how we're providing feedback to students and how we're speaking and talking with students to promote high expectations.
Wow. That's phenomenal. And you're right. We teachers had to present ourselves and deal with the students entirely different. And you show the success when you do that. It's phenomenal. Very good.
The other piece is that, students, oftentimes we think of students as not wanting to do things that are hard.
Right.
And we've seen that shift in terms of this work on mindset and feedback, in that they're starting to understand that a struggle is a good thing, and that's a great life goal. So whether it's in learning or relationships with others or whatever it might be, we're seeing that pay off in terms of what our students are thinking.
So would you say that as sixth graders enter, and some of them have needs maybe greater or less than others, would you say that definitely by eighth grade, they look different going out than they did coming in?
Well, they're all taller.
Oh, yeah, I know that.
No, I think one of the things that we can't measure is that level of maturity and self-confidence.
Oh, of course.
But that's what we see from a lot of our students, and I think they're better able to articulate their needs than they were when they came to us.
Okay.
Part of that is maturity, but I
Sure.
hope that part of it also comes through these
Well,
conversations.
I'm sure it does. great. Yes, Mr. Baumgart.
I want to comment on a few of the words I just heard because they're important. Respect and responsibility, I heard you mention, and I heard you mention that they don't like to do things that are hard, and we think that. But, and Rob knows this, I like to come over there at the end of the school year and see particularly two of your science projects. Building an airplane is not easy, and I'm talking about an airplane that's going to fly in the sky with people on it. And we've accomplished that at Les Paul. And the other thing, respect and responsibility, that I was so impressed with the last couple of years. For those of you that don't know, they build this marble roller coaster through the halls, down and up and down and all that kind of stuff. Several things come to mind. When you visit with the kids that have been in that physics program, they are engaged.
Mm-hmm.
They're heavily engaged in that program. And that thing is up there for days and weeks, maybe. The other thing that is so noticeable is it sits there, it's vulnerable for easily to be damaged by other kids. You've never had an episode. So you're seeing engagement, responsibility, respect, and doing some hard things over there. And when you said those words, it just, it just grabbed me because I've seen it personally, year after year after year, and the stuff that they've gotten done. So I have to compliment on that. On that.
You've created a phenomenal culture at that school, and you have to be very proud of that. Very proud of that.
It's a lot.
Rob, you're not allowed to fly that airplane, and neither are you, B.
It's a lot of great people doing a lot of great things for kids.
Oh, yes. Very, very much so. Yes, Karen.
Thank you. I just wanted to just tell you, I'm just so impressed with your leadership and hearing all that you're doing and every tag in those books. I mean, that's just time out of your day that you're doing, I'm sure, at home. And hopefully all that work, that extra work that you're doing is going to make your job easier in the end because you're going to have a better environment to work in and love your jobs. So I just want to say thank you. And a few people have asked me in the last probably year since you put Compass into place, what do you think? Should we go to this middle school? And I've sent them your way, and I'm glad because I know they're being nurtured in the best possible way. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's the word, nurtured. We think when kids get out of elementary school, they don't need to be nurtured when they get out of kindergarten. Well, we need to be nurtured, and most of all, they do. So good word, thank you. All right, anything else? No. Okay, well, thank you for nurturing us tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate all your work. I've visited your school, and I have to agree with Mr. Baumgart. You've got engaged students. That's one of the first things you notice, so.
Thank you.
Job well done, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, looks like we have come to the end of our September meeting. First of all, I'd like to thank you for all the beautiful flowers and for the treats, et cetera. It's very much appreciated. And the date of the next Teaching and Learning Committee meeting will be Tuesday, October 3rd, 2017, 6 o'clock at the Lynn Home Boardroom. Thank you for your participation tonight. Meeting is adjourned.